Did you think I was dead? Hey, what's poppin' fellas? It's Mav, and today I want to talk about an important topic that's been on my mind for a few years, but this time I won't be at it alone.
Hi guys, my name is SL. I'm a good friend of Mav and I've been playing video games since I was 3, so I tend to know the difference between a good and a bad game.
Now, I know I've disappeared from existence after my last video, and I want you all to know that I'm not dead, and that I still stream when my hands are full with work, but we'll get into that at the end of the video. In any case, I'm going to do my best to create content whenever I can. Without further ado, let's get started. Gaming. It has a different meaning to each and every person. To me, it's a stress reliever, a way to meet friends, and a source of happiness I've known since I was in diapers. It's a part of my culture, really. Fun gameplay, banger music, an immersive story, and something to experience with friends is something everyone should experience. As a kid, I had not a worry in the world. After school, I'd come home and sit crisscrossed on the family couch just to binge my favorite games. It didn't matter what distractions were around me. My attention was unbreakable. To this day, I still remember playing games like Halo, Jak and Daxter, Sonic the Hedgehog, Gears of War, Kingdom Hearts, Dead Rising, and the list just goes on. I could find that same level of enjoyment today that I had when I was a little kid. To be honest, I was pretty spoiled growing up when it came to owning the newest consoles and games. Most of my friends and I had the different consoles or a good PC, be it old or new, so I was able to play a wide variety of games. I loved the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 2, and the GameCube in particular. As the years passed, I was just so ecstatic for the newest big game to release back in the day. The boys and I would join an Xbox party and scramble to find the newest info on Halo Reach or Call of Duty Black Ops. And things really continued to be that way until the rise of modern games as we know it. As time went on, I'd start to hear friends disappearing and some people saying that there's just nothing to play anymore. How many people get on to just talk and not even play games. And recently, I personally feel like the quality of games, mostly AAA titles, have plummeted immensely.
While for me, I feel like recently there's a sentiment that some games, not all, but some games developers are just making it to make a quick buck instead of actually making a polished and well-balanced game.
We may need to give the new console generation some time to create some good games and get back on their feet. After all, it's a relatively new generation with the recent pandemic definitely setting back production exponentially, so I'm willing to wait. But as time goes on, I'm getting more and more skeptical because we just haven't seen any groundbreaking games for the new consoles yet. Maybe the next big Elder Scrolls or Grand Theft Auto will truly give the new generation a name for itself because I truly want to see this generation do well.
In addition to what Mav just brought up, current gen games do have some gems in there so far, like the recent releases of Resident Evil 8, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, just to give some examples.
I mean, without a doubt, games today look good, snazzy, and are advertised to be an amazing and engaging experience. But when you take the time to actually purchase a modern game that interests you, many are filled with microtransactions, bugs, and other poor business practices that attempt to use you, the player, as their money slave to fill quotas. And if it didn't work, it wouldn't be an issue to this day. I think many of you can agree that there needs to be less of a focus on the nicest graphics and more on progression, content, and functionality, because that's what makes many of these old games hold up today. Personally, when I see companies release countless remasters, it just goes to show that they're running low on ideas, and some of the newer ideas that come to fruition are just plain boring. Many franchises that we've grown up and loved have gone from dream-achieving works of art that the developers put their heart and soul into commercial machines. Even some of those most renowned companies, such as Bethesda, responsible for Elder Scrolls and Fallout, have created an unfinished buggy mess that lacked content at launch. To some, I may sound like some old man or a broken record, and that's okay. You're free to believe what you believe, but hear me out for a second. There are so many empty promises and false advertisements within the industry. Just look at No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk, or Fallout 76. At release, they were complete dumpster fires that lied about the features that would be accessible at launch. Problem with this is that releasing an empty, buggy game might maintain existing fans as they wait for developers to add in new updates, but they fail to advertise to the wider audience that will truly expand their product. Not only that, but games such as Fortnite, Apex Legends, and PUBG all have the same battle royale modes that are littered with microtransactions. And I don't know about you guys, but all of these games having the same modes and same business practices have been getting old for years now. It is downright impossible to get all of the cool flashy drip in these games by just playing it, so they're set up like casinos to suck unsuspecting players dry of their money with repetitive gameplay. But moving forward though, let's dig deeper and talk about other franchises. Can you really compare the overall quality of Call of Duty now to how it once was? Or maybe Gears of War to how it once was? How about Sonic the Hedgehog to how it once was? Maybe Dragon Ball? The point is that there are too many franchises to count. And look, if you genuinely enjoy these games, then who am I to stop you from playing something you enjoy? But the point is that there needs to be some sort of regulation within the industry, as well as giving these f***ing freeloaders a rude awakening from you the players. These top dog AAA companies are getting away with business practices, and I believe that if we stand up to companies like Activision, EA, and 2K, we can re-establish what made gaming once great. Now, I was never the biggest fan of Call of Duty after Black Ops 2, but I have played most of them. I just can't name any Call of Duty after Black Ops 2 that I thoroughly enjoyed other than the new Modern Warfare reboot, and even that has its fair share of issues. Still, it was headed in the right direction. Heck, even 343 had a decent game, that being Halo Wars 2, but they were held back by the top dogs at Microsoft, and that brings us right back to the biggest issue. I just don't get why so many companies change formulas that have a lot of success. Of course, monetization and deadlines by top businessmen are very important, but anyway, let's take a step back a little bit. Where did microtransactions come from? Well, to do that, we need to go way back. I'm talking as far back as the late 70s during the prime of the Atari 2600 and the Nintendo Entertainment System in the early 80s. During the prime of the Atari 2600 and the Nintendo Entertainment System existed the origin of all microtransactions, arcades. Now, I'm sure you all are very familiar with them, but within these arcades existed cabinets that contained games, and you'd pay a small sum of money, typically less than $1 to play the game until you either lose or run out of playtime. They follow the whole model the microtransaction businessmen tell us that they've invented. Big upfront investment by the company paid back by micropayments driven by compulsion loops. You just had to put in a few more cents to beat that level in Galaga or Dig Dug. Developers make the games the way they do so the player becomes addicted, so they're convinced to spend more and more in the game, which can be beneficial for both dev and player. But that's not all. The owners of these arcades can open up the cabinets and alter both the price and the difficulty of said game, which is f***ing bullshit, just like the ranked system we have today with many of these modern games. And this was how mainstream gaming was for many years until the 90s. Kids would go to arcades after school and spend all of their pocket change, but once home consoles became popular enough, the arcade community plummeted, and while it never faded away completely, it never returned to its former glory days thanks to home video game consoles, which in my opinion is a good thing. You should be able to just buy a game and own everything within it. It was at this point in the 90s where most gamers went on to buy home consoles, and with these consoles buy games for them. You want to know what was so good about home consoles compared to game cabinets? Microtransactions were null and void, and you owned the game and everything within it. If you wanted to get something, you just played the game and unlocked certain things, and that was it. Not only that, but you could play them within the comfort of your own home. Before the internet existed, you had to learn how to play each game and unlock levels, and the better player was rewarded rather than who could just spend hundreds of dollars on in-game currency. And things were like this for many years. Arcades would live on to an extent, and home consoles would be devoid of all microtransactions until the rise of mobile games. Now, I'm not going to blame all of the issues with gaming on modern tech and say that it's bad, because playing a free game on mobile is different from playing a game that you buy on console. But this is when microtransactions rose to the top. Developers would release apps for free and make it so you have to pay for in-game currency to either excel, play the entire game, or even stand a chance against other players in online settings. I'm no stranger to mobile games. I was a huge fan of Battle Cats when I was young, but heck, that too had microtransactions. I could have spent hundreds of dollars and just beat all of the hard levels, but what's the fun in that? Just think about it. A vast majority of these free mobile games are entirely built around microtransactions, and this has been going on for well over 10 years, and it's getting worse. It's gotten so bad and widely accepted at this point that it's bled into our home consoles. It's one thing to release a map pack, but to make all cosmetics or integral features inaccessible without spending your hard-earned cash is ridiculous. It's getting to the point where nearly every game now that has an online system will guarantee microtransactions with purchasable in-game currency. How can someone sell a game for $60 and then include all of these microtransactions?
If you think it's just mobile games, console games do this as well. A Square Enix game that released recently called Chocobo GP, a Final Fantasy racing game, has some really scummy tactics. Firstly, there's a battle pass system that's not uncommon with live service games. First battle pass allows you to unlock Cloud as a racer. To gain access to the battle pass though, you need to actually buy the battle pass with Mithril, a currency you spend real life money on. While you do get a daily mithril logging bonus, it won't help you get any closer to gaining access to that battle pass. Now, granted, this Cloud Battle Pass, since the game just came out as a sort of thank you for buying the game bonus, you were given enough mithril to access the battle pass. How much do you guys want to bet that won't happen for the future battle passes? As well as that, you need to reach level 60 to unlock Cloud. And you level up so painstakingly slow. While the game was patched to make leveling easier, this is just ridiculous. There's a premium battle pass that will allow you to unlock Cloud right away, but the catch is you need mithril to buy that pass. If you don't care about the battle pass, that's fine, but there are constantly pop-ups advertising the game, not uncommon to how mobile games advertise. Apparently your mithril can expire. Now it is the free mithril that you're given, but it's still just such bullshit to build it in the system. To put this in perspective, Crash CCR Nitro Fuel did something similar, but there was no paywall to get to the current events. It was so much easier to get rewards from it, and you didn't feel like you had to pay for it. I'm not defending the microtransactions in CCR, but it was so much less scummier than what Square Enix did.
Let me get this straight though. Are all microtransactions inherently evil? No, not if it doesn't define the game. There's two categories to microtransactions, starting with bonus content, that being map packs, extra story, and maybe a specific cosmetic item or two, but that's it. This obviously doesn't affect the gameplay in the slightest and is perfectly fine in practice because it doesn't grant any sort of advantage to the player. Okay, there have been map packs and stuff of that sort for a long time, and I'm sure that most of you enjoy more content on top of an already finished game. Here's what's not okay though. Loot boxes, experience boosts, limited time use items, and paying for plot progression. How is it that a game that's old enough to be my dad was released as a finished product, but not the next big AAA first-person shooter that has a ridiculous budget? AAA companies simply can't take a risk to invest in finishing a game without marketing it for a retail price and having no way to purchase things, so they release it incomplete with microtransactions in hopes of it earning enough and fitting the modern status quo. These companies do this in hopes that some guy will use his mom's credit card to dish out a few $100s, which is what made Fortnite such a success. But I just can't see this same formula continue for very long. I mean, people are eventually going to catch on and do something about it. Things always change in the gaming industry, so I wouldn't be surprised, but who knows, maybe this will keep on going, maybe it'll get worse. But let's backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about more on why loot boxes and experience boosts are greedy business practices, in case you don't know already. For starters, experience boosts simply ruin the experience for players that don't dish out that extra cash because they won't level up as fast, of course. Just take a look at how catastrophic that was executed in Call of Duty Black Ops 4. Second, I think we all are very familiar with what loot boxes are. They suck the fun out of everything, and when you see one, you drop what you're doing and run in the opposite direction. But for those who don't know, the concept is quite simple. You pay a minuscule amount of money to buy a box without knowing what you're going to get. Many of these games will show what you could get if you're lucky. This can be for cosmetics, weapons, as well as abilities, and so on. Now, this is where my crazy claim from earlier comes into play. Essentially, you're playing a game of slots in a skewed system. Players who grinded that didn't use mommy's credit card have to put in hundreds or thousands of hours to unlock the same thing that the others do. When Black Ops 4 implemented this system, the backlash was so bad that they took it out of the game entirely. In good riddance, we need them out of every game. We aren't money slaves, and we all have standards on what we want in our beloved franchises. In all honesty, DLC in games will always be a thing, but how they are priced should be determined on how much content we the consumers are getting. Because spending $40 on 2 season passes just for some measly skins or characters is a complete ripoff. A game that sets the golden standard for a good DLC is Skyrim and its added content. Even without DLC, many of us know that Skyrim can take hundreds of hours to play through and explore, and after years of playing it, still learn new cool things. But they made this game even better with the Dragonborn DLC. This particular DLC adds an entirely new map to an already giant and beautiful world, and around 10 to 30 more hours of gameplay that's filled with story and places to explore. That is a bang for your buck. And that doesn't even count the Dawnguard or Hearthfire DLC that's also added metric tons of content. They not only made your buck worth it, but they went far and beyond and ensured that you had one heck of a time. I mean, everything from weapons, armor, spells, characters, houses. Man, Bethesda really outdid themselves at the time. Heck, some can argue that Fallout New Vegas had equally outstanding DLC. So if you want to make a DLC that's half the price of the finished game, you better f***ing deliver some good shit. Okay, so that applies to story-based single-player games. What about multiplayer-centric games? Many of you might be asking. Let's take a glimpse at a few games that had cool multiplayer DLC. Well, there's the Halo 2 multiplayer map pack, having been released in 2005. This map pack was at its peak in the early days of Xbox Live, as well as online gaming in general, and it came on a disc. It was priced at $20 and contained 9 maps, as well as updating the game automatically for those who didn't play it online. 9 maps isn't anything crazy, but these were some great-looking maps that had vehicles, different layouts that accommodated different game modes, making for some great unique gameplay. And at the time, these were some beautiful looking maps. A few skins, characters aren't really going to cut it for a good DLC, especially if it's priced for a fraction of how much the game is worth. New ideas such as maps, weapons, vehicles, and game modes are really what make things more diverse in multiplayer games, and many of these AAA developers have been competent, so it makes no sense that they aren't now.
A batch of DLC we received that was great was from the Spider-Man PS4 game, The City That Never Sleeps. This DLC had its own story, in which its own right could have been half of a full game, because it takes a decent amount of time for you to just to do the main story. This DLC had 3 parts. In part 1, the Hyde's Black Cat was introduced. She did leave Peter recorded messages in the base game, but in here we actually see her show up and breaking into a museum. It also introduces Hammerhead, the main villain for this DLC, who is a villain from Spider-Man media. In part 2, Turf Wars, we actually take on Hammerhead and see a dark spiral of Yuri Watanabe, a police officer on good terms with Spider-Man. We see her spiral into darkness because of her failing to save her cops while on duty. In part 3, Silver Lining, we see Silver Sable come back after she left in the main game, and in an unlikely twist, she teams up with Spider-Man after taking on an antagonistic role in the base game. As well as a beefy main story, it also has great side content, new collectibles, new suits to equip onto Peter Parker where it wears Spider-Man, new challenges where this abomination on a screwball who I loathe, new crimes that weren't in the base game, and DLC trophies. This game feels like it could have been a decent portion of a main game, and I love it for that. I love it for the same reason I love playing the base game. I feel like I'm playing a Spider-Man movie. And if you're like me and one of your favorite superheroes is Spider-Man, that's definitely something you definitely want to nail. While I don't have a perfect measure of how long this DLC should take you, when I played it for my first time ever on livestream, it took me 2.5 hours to beat the heist because I tried to get everything, an hour and a half to do Turf Wars because I was trying to prioritize main story, and for Silver Lining it took me 2 hours, tackling it the same way I did Turf Wars. The DLC isn't all too expensive. Each individual part is €7.99, and there's a season pass for €20, which if you don't want to do the maths, yes, is less money. Also, if you have a PS5 and Spider-Man Miles Morales, you can get the remaster, which includes the DLC for completely free. That is, of course, if you don't mind seeing the new Peter Parker face.
With that though, let's talk about some bad DLC. One that comes to my mind is For Honor. I remember playing the beta of this game and thinking, wow, knights, Vikings, and samurais f***ing going at it in a battle system that has parrying and objective-based gameplay. I remember playing this game when the beta was first released, and man, I thought of it as a dream come true. I was just so hyped for the finished game to come out, but I should have known that Ubisoft would take a steamy dump all over the finished product. It had less content than promised, a boatload of bugs, server connection issues, microtransactions, and the one thing that bothered me the most, character balance issues. For Honor offered a season pass that granted you access to each new character class that was released for the game, and the developers made it possible to unlock said characters by grinding the game. Though once the first DLC came out, the game was long dead, and the issue with all of the DLCs were that most of the DLC characters were vastly superior to the base game characters, and the balancing was absolutely abysmal, and nearly every one they released were eventually nerfed into obscurity over time, making them just unplayable. The main reason this game kicked the bucket was a lack of communication between Ubisoft and the consumers. It's sad to see that the DLC only made things worse, and now you'll never hear anything of this game because it just flopped that hard.
My suggestion for a bad case of DLC is Sonic Lost World, and anyone who's familiar with my channel knows I'm not the biggest fan of Sonic Lost World. I even have videos up on my channel that will roast this game like a marshmallow that can be burned into a crisp. Now, Sonic Lost World had potential and ideas that could have worked, which I did outline in that video, but they throw that potential out the window. Sonic Lost World has one set of DLC as a pre-order bonus. You get the amazing contribution of 25 lives. 25 lives. I played this game recently to get footage for that aforementioned video, and I didn't die at all. There's a Yoshi DLC, loosely based off Yoshi's Island, and while I love the cartoony style reminiscent of the Yoshi games, it's no different to the rest of the Sonic game. Pipes only take you to secret rooms that get you nothing more than more rings and Yoshi eggs, and the eggs that survive to the end of the level just get you more lives. The Knights DLC is also not good in my opinion. The levels and platforming section are very automated. You just only attack a few balls and the level is automated for you. This level is supposed to be a boss rush, but you barely even fight the Deadly Six, you just fight the contraptions they are on. You somehow made the Deadly Six even weaker bosses, and I didn't know you could do that. Sonic Lost World did have a Legend of Zelda DLC, and the beginning I actually loved. This is what I wanted out of Sonic Lost World. The fact that the game has multiple paths, Sonic's control scheme seems a lot more explorative, he has parkour which lets him run up walls for a brief period of time. This is what I would have loved for a game to be more explorative, but this is short-lived because it quickly becomes like all the tunnel levels in the game after you find a tunnel. And it's sad because this had such great potential and was a great impersonation of a Zelda game for the better half of it.
With so many DLCs being a complete ripoff, most people seem to hesitate just by hearing the word itself, but good ones do exist out there that are worth it, and they could be great for the gaming industry if made right. Usually bad DLC reflects off of a bad game, but there are expectations to that, of course. To all of you game devs that work 60 hours a week to finish the game you put your heart and soul into, you've brought enjoyment to players all across the world, and you should feel proud of that. But many devs work for greedy businessmen that know jack shit about video games. Back in the day, before online games were dominant in the internet being used worldwide, games were mostly released in a finished state because they couldn't afford to just update the game. That just wasn't a thing at the time. They didn't have enhanced physics, hyper-realistic textures, or any of that sort of stuff. So there were more to games than how they looked. But the main reason games were released in a finished state was because once the discs were shipped out to stores, you couldn't update a game, like I said, which in my opinion was a good thing. Sure, the argument can be made that once you release a game, you can update it over time to fix bugs that are already in the game. There are many of old games that have plenty of unfixed bugs, but big corporations have taken advantage of that and have just become downright lazy. When a game is released, it should be released in a finished state. If you add in updates, it should be updated to make the game even better and add in more content. In reality, once a game is released and people play it for the first time, word spreads fast, and if your game doesn't make the mark that fans expect when it's released, it isn't going to be well received. So I have a great recommendation for all of you gamers that are sick of the games that you're getting from your favorite genres or what have you. Venture out into new genres or games that you've never even thought about playing. I know that playing the same genre for countless years with the overall quality fluctuating depending on what franchise we're talking about can be very tiring. There will always be a game that you never tried that you might love. I must say that if I wasn't into RPGs or platformers or indie games, I might not even be here right now making this video. So what if your friends in school play the new biggest battle royale? If they enjoy it, great, but if you don't, give some new games a shot like Persona 5 Royal, Elden Ring, Detroit Become Human, Sonic Mania, and there's just so many more. You may find quality enjoyment in games you don't find in the biggest, best looking AAA title. You may also not find these games interesting because of their art style, but you never know until you give it a try. Don't let a bad fan base or one bad game in a big series deter you from giving it a shot. There are plenty of games that I know that are objectively well made and well acclaimed that just aren't for me. Friends tried to get me into playing Rust, but I'm just not a big fan of grinding online. For the longest time, I thought Persona wasn't for me, but a couple years back, SL recommended me the series, and I not only got to experience Persona 5 Royal and Persona 4 Golden, but I also got into Shin Megami Tensei and got to experience Final Fantasy VII. So expanding your repertoire can help you find games that you never knew you liked. And old games are always going on sale. Anyway, not all of modern gaming is bad. There are plenty of good games, and developers with good ideas are from Software with the Soulsborne series. Now I know that this series is particularly difficult, especially to new players, but it sets a standard for what video games should be in terms of quality as a whole. This series teaches us that a game doesn't have to have ray tracing, require a $6,000 PC, or have an absolutely mesmerizing atmosphere. This game doesn't just straight up hold your hand. No siree, my friend. I've been trying to beat Dark Souls Remastered for a few months, and I'm still getting my ass absolutely clapped by it. But you know what keeps bringing me back over and over? The sheer quality that it has, and it makes the difficulty worth it, at least in my eyes. A game that doesn't hold your hand requires you to think outside the box and try out new things, as well as completely mastering the mechanics and looking for new areas. A lot of games have potential to be the next big masterpiece because of how hyped they were, but that's the key word, potential. Very rarely can a flopped game have a miraculous resurgence though it has happened before with Star Wars Battlefront 2, which is a very special case. This game had one of the most miraculous resurgences in video game history. Now, many of you may be asking, how can a game make such a miraculous comeback after flopping so hard? Well, EA actually realized that their game had potential to be good, but the loot boxes made it absolute trash and removed the loot boxes as well as microtransactions that locked gameplay behind RNG. So they know that we don't like to spend hundreds of dollars on rigged systems, but that game could make its own video, and I was shocked at how much I enjoyed playing it with friends now. But it just goes to show that there is still hope in these games. I highly recommend this game to anyone who's interested. I'm not the biggest fan of Star Wars, but man, did I have a great time with this game.
So apparently I'm supposed to recommend games for you guys to play if you're sick of all the, stuff coming out nowadays, which is great because that means you're forced to listen to my opinions. One series that stole my heart recently in 2021 and 2022 is Resident Evil series. I got into it because a YouTuber by the name of Penny Parker, aka the person behind Snapcubes, was playing the recently released at the time Resident Evil 8. I thought the game looked fun. Great for me, the mainline series went on sale on Steam a few weeks later, so I bought all of them. I've at this point in time played 2 Remake, 3 Remake, and 7, and I'm currently playing 4 on stream, which will most likely be done by the time this video comes out. As a person who gets scared really easily, prior to watching her play Resident Evil 8, I thought this series wouldn't be for me, but I was so wrong. The stress and inevitability of you running out of bullets, avoiding potential stalker enemies that you can kill while collecting items with the previously mentioned limited inventory and solving puzzles is weirdly fun. And when you know the games, you can beat it in under 3 hours, which is a great speedrunning challenge. As you want proof, I streamed the majority of my Leon hardcore playthrough on the channel. And well, the in-game timer didn't go over 3 hours. IRL timer, yeah, that's a different story. Another series I wanted to recommend to you guys is the Fire Emblem series. This is a tactics-based RPG set in medieval Europe. Mostly. I think this is a unique type of tactics game. This is due to the amount of additions this series adds. In the Fire Emblem games, there's a system called the support system. It develops when you have characters fight alongside each other. This allows more character development and characterization of the main cast, which is why they've become so beloved over the years. As of this point in time, I've played Awakening, all 3 routes of Fire Emblem Fates, 1 route of 3 Houses, with me doing the other 2 currently at this point in time, and the majority of Path of Radiance. This game is a very fun series where you have to stop and actually think about what you're trying to do and see if your strategy works out. There's not much more to say about this game, it's a fun tactics game, and try it out if you're into tactics RPGs. Next series I'm going to recommend is a platformer that has stolen my heart since a child. That is the Crash Bandicoot series. There are many ways to get into this series. The most easiest would be the remake of the original trilogy, the remake of Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, or the recently released Crash Bandicoot 4. All of these are available on Steam and modern consoles, so just take your pick. Crash Bandicoot is a typical platformer. Honestly, I made a whole video about Crash, so if you want more details, you can go watch that, but if you want the basics, there's Crash, he has a jump, he has a spin, you have to break all the boxes in a level and not die to rescue your girlfriend. Or collect crystals if they're playing the second or third game. Honestly, there's way too much for me to just explain in just a single video. It's typical mutant animal versus evil scientist. But I mean, hey, most of the people on this channel are Sonic fans anyway, so who knows, maybe you'll find a story interesting, give it a try, I don't know. The whole point is to try and experiment stuff. Alright, and that is my part of the video. Thank you guys so much for having me on, and thank you to Mav for coming to me with this video idea. When he mentioned it to me, I thought it was just in passing, asking what I thought of his idea, but turns out he wanted me to collab with him on it, which I was more than happy to do. Thank you so much, Mav, for having me on, and I'm gonna pass it back to you to close off the video properly. Please check out my stuff. I do live streams, I do breakdown videos, I do gameplay videos. Please go check me out. I'm sure to have something here that will tickle your fancy.
To wrap things up, I just want to thank you, SL, for helping me out with this video. I am definitely looking forward to our projects in the future. Follow his YouTube, I'm going to leave it in the description. I've known him for a pretty long time, and yeah, I hope you guys all liked this video. This took us a very, very long time to create with work and college getting in the way. As time passes, different age groups are probably going to want different games, as many of us who grew up with the Xbox 360 or PS2 are way older now. But wherever the future lies, SL and I just want large companies to no longer take advantage of you, the consumers, and that you, the consumers, could stand together in changing how these corrupt industries operate. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Check out my second channel as I upload all of my stream archives there, as well as my Twitch, because I'm on Twitch far more than I am here on YouTube due to work. Anyway, we'd love to see your feedback. I'll do my best to respond to everyone. If you guys want to see any more collabs or have any recommendations, let us know down in the comments. Thanks again, SL, for coming on, and thanks to all of you viewers who stayed until the very end. Now, I know I'm not going to be able to upload all of the time, and I may disappear for a long time before uploading again. But subscribe if you want to see more content. That's all I've got for you guys today. I'll see you all next time. Peace out, fellas.